I've started a regimen for myself, and I want to run this all by you and get your take on it. And Ron, you're my friend, right? You'll tell me if I'm off the mark on something, right?
Oh yes, in a nice way.
Yeah.
This particular virus likes cholesterol, and I'll submit to you, the bat, he doesn't know anything about elderberry.
Right.
He just flies a lot. He's busy. He's metabolically super active.
These are lifestyle-related deaths, not even coronavirus deaths.
We are counseled to utilize every one of these natural things that God has placed within our reach. It's really intemperate to take it as an essential oil. It's too concentrated. I'm going to go ahead and talk about pine or pinene.
Yes,
which is,
Ron, I
one of
put pine essential oil in that Vicks thing with the hydrogen peroxide.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great news.
I've learned from
That
the
is
best.
wonderful news. What they found was astounding. Not only were the natural killer cell levels increased, but the effect lasted over 30 days.
That's amazing.
So you got the increased activity. Technology has allowed us to create the nanoparticle silver because it's able to leave the body, not to turn us into blue men.
Right. Well, joining me right now on 11th Hour Dispatch is my good friend Ron Meinhardt of Entering Wedge Media. Ron is my go-to guy when I have a question about all things health, so I'm super happy to be conducting this interview about natural remedies in fighting viruses. And of course, we say the disclaimer, we do not intend to treat, diagnose, cure, mitigate, prevent, or any diseases. And consult your qualified health official. Thank you, or health professional. Thank you, FDA officials, for keeping us on track with all of that. So, Ron, it's great to have you. You want to talk about natural remedies today?
Oh yes, that's one of my favorite topics. So thank you so much for having me. And everything I'm sharing is it's from research and personal experience. So as you said, Scott, we're not recommending this on others, but it's for educational purposes, for your own benefit. And it would advise you to listen to these things, but to, as any good Bible student would do, to study to show yourself approved unto God and make your own decisions based on this evidence.
Absolutely. So we're going to hit zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, elderberry, garlic. We're going to talk nano silver, iodine, pinene, oregano oil, turmeric, and a bunch of herbs as well. And I think, Ron, you have some more. Basically, I'm firing off my list. I've traveled for work, for ministry, for years, and I'm always encountering all of these illnesses in airplanes and viruses coming at you this way and that, and you're jet lagged and everything. So I've started a regimen for myself, and I want to run this all by you and get your take on it. And Ron, you're my friend, right? You'll tell me if I'm off the mark on something, right?
Oh yes.
All right,
oh, yes.
good. Now,
in a nice way.
Yeah. Before I get to the remedies, those specific things I was just mentioning, what are some things that we need to be doing with our health in general? Like, you can't just live a super unhealthy life and be morbidly obese with type 2 diabetes and heart disease and sedentary living and all of that, and then, you pop in oregano and then you're good, right? I mean, what are some of the things that we need to do even before we talk about these remedies?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to realize the limits of these supplements, these natural remedies, because they are supplementary to a healthy lifestyle. In fact, I would term them more as catalyst to a natural healing process that God has already begun or continuing in the body. And so it is super important for us to observe healthy lifestyle principles. We know that proper nutrition, exercise, water intake, the whole New Start acronym, it's vitally important. And number one risk factor besides increasing age now they're finding is obesity. And to study the physiology of bats, to study the physiology of or the pathophysiology of MERS and SARS can give us some good ideas in terms of how to combat this this potentially fatal infection.
Ron,
one other thing, yeah.
All of the viruses and diseases that we face can be improved by doing nutrition, water, exercise, sunlight, temperance, exercise, air, and rest. I think I got them all.
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking about how to bring the best firepower for these particular class of viruses, and
Oh,
also
yes.
just living healthy is going to improve your immunity. People think immunity comes from a vaccine. You develop your
Yeah.
own immunity, yes, by being exposed to things, right? But also by having
Exactly.
a healthy body to begin with.
Exactly. And the thing about it is our immune system it's kind of like an appendage to our being. If we are sick, our immune system is going to be sick as well. And so we see that the people who are most at risk, not only outwardly with the risk factor of obesity, but inwardly with a derangement of the immune system, immunocompromised individuals, or just some type of metabolic disorder like diabetes. I recently found a study that looked at SARS, the original coronavirus outbreak that occurred there over 10 years ago in China. And what they found was that this particular virus likes cholesterol. In fact, if they take cholesterol away from the cell, they strip the cholesterol from the cell membrane. They found that the viruses cannot enfold themselves in a membrane anymore, so they're kind of stuck. And when they infuse cholesterol back into this, I believe it was an in vitro study, the virus started replicating and emerging, budding from the cells again. So, hey, a proper diet is hugely important. So sometimes we underestimate the value of these things. And I'll submit to you, the bat, he doesn't know anything about elderberry.
Right.
He just flies a lot. He's busy. He's metabolically super active. He's plagued with maybe hundreds of coronaviruses, but he does not succumb to them because he's living a lifestyle that's natural for him.
Let me ask you
And
a
a lot of
question,
times,
Ron.
sure, yeah.
If you had to choose, between either living a super healthy lifestyle, low cholesterol, you're eating whole grains, plant-based foods, vegetables, fruits, you name it, and you're getting your exercise, and you're drinking lots of water, and you're getting enough sleep at night, your rest, low stress, trust in God, temperance, all of that. You're either living all of that, or you're living the average way, not super morbid, but you're living average, which is pretty bad, and
Yeah.
you take every known remedy, supplement, and regimen that you can get on. Which one do you think is going to fight the viruses better?
Without a question, the healthy lifestyle.
I thought you'd say that.
We can do ourselves damage by living an unhealthy lifestyle and taking supplements and taking these natural remedies and still continuing on with an unhealthy lifestyle. We could have the most dangerous things occur to us because the immune system still is not prepared. It's kind of like giving a lot of ammunition to a group of children and expecting them to go to war. They're not ready.
Right.
So we need to make sure that both things are done correctly, and the foundation is the healthy lifestyle.
I think, Ron, that we've hit that point hard enough that we can talk about some of these remedies too, but I just wanted to
Yes.
emphasize and underscore the point, as I know you did as well, that these are not to replace healthy living in general. That's number one by far, to quote Ron Meinhardt, without question. And I'll tell you
Yes.
something. When I saw the data that 86% of the people in New York who were dying of COVID-19 had comorbid conditions. This is deadly to people because you could say these are lifestyle-related deaths, not even coronavirus deaths. Because I had
That's
an
right.
analogy that if I decide I'm going to drive through a city through a bunch of stop signs at 60 miles an hour, just flying through them, and here I go zooming through the stop signs, I'm living a high-risk lifestyle, aren't I? Eventually,
Yes.
something's going to come along where a car's coming through at an appropriate traffic obeying speed, and they strike me and I perish. Well, what killed me? You could say me choosing and I'm not trying to heap guilt on people or whatever. Like, God is a God of compassion, but we've got to wake up and realize many of us are in a state of slow motion suicide, and we're playing Russian roulette when we live in this way where we're already, it's called comorbid conditions, right? People are morbid. They're already on the track, and this just triggered it. So, we could talk all about quarantines and everything. I'm going to do a message called COVID Dystopia, where we'll deal more with the issue of societal response to this. But I'd love to get into some of these remedies because that's what people really want to hear from you about, Ron. Tell me about, I hear all the time about zinc.
Zinc. Okay, well, just in brief, zinc, it's somewhat hard to find right now because so many people are talking about it, but it does appear to help block viral replication when it's in the cell. It's very easy to become deficient in zinc due to various lifestyle factors. I always have some zinc on hand, and I'm not recommending particular brands, but it's not something you should take all the time because it could have adverse effects long term. But just to make sure your zinc is in proper amounts, a lot of these supplements really should only be taken to bring your body, your levels up to a correct amount. And the regular intake, like these pumpkin seeds, rich in zinc. This is how we keep our zinc in normal levels. And there are so many other positive benefits of zinc. There are plenty of fiber in these pumpkin seeds. They're anti-parasite. They're one of the best things for male health. The beta-cytosterols found in the oil in the pumpkin seed helps to alleviate benign prostatic hypertrophy in studies. Just a wonderful source of zinc. And so I think if you can't get a hold of the zinc supplement, don't despair. And by the way, if you can't get a hold of any of these things, still live a healthy lifestyle. Put your trust in the Lord because you know what? He can save you. He can heal you. He can bring you close to him and touch you with his divine touch of healing, regardless of these things.
Amen.
But we are counseled to utilize every one of these natural things that God has placed within our reach.
Ron, you were talking about pumpkin seeds, and I have all my visual aids here on the shelf next to me. And for viewers, Ron can't see me. He and I are audio only right now. And I held up my visual aid there of the pumpkin seeds and the zinc. So I'm so glad you're on it. You didn't even know I was going to bring those. We're reading off the same script. It's called Reality and the Truth, isn't it? Tell me about vitamin C.
Yes. Vitamin C, so essential. These whole foods. God placed not only vitamin C here in an isolated form, but he placed a number of other adjuvants. You see, these things are highly medicinal, and they're perfect packages too. So I have questions about some supplements right now just because we don't know a lot about this virus, and certain supplements, if given in massive doses, could actually increase the lethality of the virus based on the physiologic function it's heightening or decreasing. But God's packages, I have no fear. So Scott, my recommendation is to study up and study up on the physiology and see if vitamin C is a good choice for this. But as I said, if you do decide, my recommendation personally, and what I do personally, is short-term use of vitamin C, not long-term. If you want to keep your vitamin C levels up, that's where the fresh fruit and vegetables come in.
Yes. Yeah, what I do with vitamin C is I take it if I feel something coming on as a supplement. Otherwise, I'm just trying to have high nutrition all the time. What I hold in my hand now is a few different things. I've got oregano oil. I've got, I wanted to pull these ones right out of the bottle because they're nice and bright orange. What is that? That's turmeric. And then this little baby is garlic from our own garden. Ron, tell me about turmeric, oregano, garlic, and you mentioned earlier elderberry. What are these all about?
Okay. Well, I actually have 2 of these here. Oh, you know what, Scott? I have 3. You beat me with the turmeric. I should have mentioned that one as well. But let's start with the oregano. And I'm just going to kind of quickly try to go through these things. Stop me if you want to add anything.
Sure.
Oregano. if you are getting oregano oil, make sure it's pre-diluted. Otherwise, it's extremely potent. It's really intemperate to take it as an essential oil. It's too concentrated. This oregano oil and oregano oils you'll find with a dropper bottle, they're going to have, like, for instance, this one has organic cold pressed extra virgin olive oil and some vitamin E for antioxidant support of the compounds in oregano. The number one active ingredient in oregano oil is carvacrol. Carvacrol has been shown to be tremendously antiviral and anti-cancer, helps with lung health. It's one of the best natural remedies for ensuring the healthy cell viability and healthy remodeling of tissues even in the lungs. Even studies of pulmonary fibrosis have found that it helps, or pulmonary hypertension have been found that it helps to alleviate that in some respects. So oregano oil, very, very potent. Just keep this in mind. If you take it, be warned, be forewarned. If you've never taken oregano oil, it will burn. Not physically, but emotionally and sensibly. It burns the oral mucosa. The only place where you don't have receptors that will be heightened and you'll get this burning sensation for oregano oil under the tongue. So if you want to use the dropper, put the drops under the tongue and take some water and rinse it down.
Hey, Ron.
If you take this, yeah.
What about taking it in capsule form?
You can do that as well. That's one of the easier ways of taking it. But I kind of like the burning. I don't know, just something about it. I kind of like to, oh, yeah, I know that's potent oregano oil there, and I just rinse it down. And you get a little bit more treatment, localized treatment to the throat as well. Turmeric. Turmeric is a wonderful natural remedy used for hundreds, if not thousands of years in Asia, but we're just recently finding out about it over here in North America. What we found is that turmeric, main active ingredient, curcumin, which is an alkaloid, that helps to tremendously decrease inflammation. So turmeric, wonderful, wonderful natural remedy. The best way I've found to take it is to take about well, I don't know the dosage you want to use, but to take a 1-to-1 ratio of turmeric to honey, mix them together into a paste, and you can even throw a little bit of vitamin C powder on there if you like. We've used this as our little family remedy for many years, and it helps to normalize fevers. We don't want to just get rid of fevers because fevers are important for certain immune aspects, but helps to normalize them, helps to kind of not stop the inflammatory cascade, but modulate it. And that's really important because inflammation is important to an immune response. We don't want to, that's why corticosteroids are not advised, because they just completely block the immune response. But these natural things allow the immune response to go on while modulating inflammation, which is super important. So turmeric, it's a great remedy.
Should I eat a whole bulb of garlic, or shall I just have one clove and cut it up into bits and swallow it whole?
Okay, that's a great question, Scott, because believe it or not, I've talked about garlic a lot. And at one point, I was giving a seminar, and I recommended, the wonderful virtues of garlic. And I had a gentleman go home, and he ate 1 clove of garlic, came back to me, and he said, I'm never doing that again. And asked him what he did, and I kind of knew what he did because the smell preceded him as he came into the room. He thought this was a clove. This is not a clove. This is a bulb of garlic.
Right.
This is a clove. This little piece, one little constituent of the bulb, this is a clove. And the person that wrote the book on garlic, Dr. Agatha Thrash, I had the liberty of touring with her and kind of being under her wings for a while. She used to say garlic, 2 to 3 of these a day, raw, of these, not these, of these little these, not the bulbs, the little cloves, not the bulb, not
How
the
do you
big
eat it?
package.
How do you eat those?
What you can do is mince it up and put it on your food. It helps to take away some of the heat. It's a very intense little vegetable, but I do not recommend it on an empty stomach. And you'll find out after about 2 minutes if you do take this on an empty stomach, because it is a very strong emetic. So I don't recommend it. It makes you throw up, unfortunately.
All right, now Ron, I hold in my hands something that I've personally done.
I also have in my hand, Scott, I'm glad you mentioned that. I have a vaporizer as well. We're not promoting Vicks per se, but they do make a pretty good one that has a nice vapor reservoir. And Scott, you didn't ask me about this yet, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about pine or pinene.
Yes,
which is,
Ron, I
one of the,
put pine essential oil in that Vicks thing with the hydrogen peroxide.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great news.
I've learned from
That
the
is
best.
wonderful news. Well, I learned from the best in the book Ministry of Healing. It says that there are healing properties in the fragrance of the pine.
Amen.
And so this is what this is right here. Researchers in Japan have found this maybe 2 decades ago or so, more or less. They found that people that went out into a forest, a pine-rich forest, came back to a city environment, and their natural killer cell levels, which natural killer cells are very important for fighting new threats, especially new viruses. Their levels and activity of natural killer cells were elevated, and the effect lasted for up to 7 days. And they decided to go back to the drawing board and said, okay, if a little bit is good, let's try a little bit more of the pine oil. And they did a study where they had individuals sleeping in a hotel room 3 nights consecutively, and they were exposed to pine oil that was diffusing out of a vaporizer, such as what you're describing. What they found was astounding. Not only were the natural killer cell levels increased, but the effect lasted over 30 days.
That's amazing.
And so you've got the increased activity and increased number of natural killer cells. Now, that being said, we have to go back to this healthy lifestyle aspect as well, because our lifestyles are the number one determinant in terms of natural killer cell activity and function. Even the way we think can impair or enhance natural killer cell activity. Studies found there's a dose-dependent relationship between depression and suppression of natural killer cell activity and number as well. So if we want to get the most benefits from something like pine oil, our mental processes need to be in the right place, and our lifestyle needs to be correct as well.
Amen. Ron, can you take pine oil, like, do you want to swallow pine essential oil?
It's not recommended.
Right.
And there's a lot of controversy in terms of taking essential oil internally. Personally, there are a few essential oils that I will take internally if they're properly diluted.
Rosemary.
Pine, rosemary, the edible foods.
And the active ingredient in pine essential oil is the same as it's called pinene, right? Did I say it right? And that's also in rosemary?
It is. Pinene. It depends on what type of pine you're using, but let's say pine scotch essential oil, which is a very inexpensive form of pine. You'll find about 30% alpha pinene, 30% beta pinene, and the residual limonene, which is limonene right here, found in the orange as well.
Wonderful.
Also found in grapefruits, mandarins.
If folks are wondering why I go back to that rosemary, Ron and I had this exact conversation because I wanted to load up on pine essential oil. I'm like, I'm going to swallow it. He's like, hold on there, Scott. You can have diluted rosemary. And I was actually making a formula. What I hold in my hand right now is RevitaGuard. And it didn't used to have a name. It used to just be something that I made for myself. And I would take when I'm traveling or just to fight something off. And what the main thing in here isn't even just the rosemary. I put the rosemary in there because I learned about pinene from Ron from Spirit of Prophecy. But Ron, tell us about, I put in this RevitaGuard also nano silver and iodine. Can you talk about those two and why you'd want to maybe spray that on your throat and kind of leave it there for a few seconds?
Yes, definitely. And I won't make any health claims, but anecdotally, all of my friends who are into natural remedies have used at least the nano silver with good effect. If you look at the hospitals, they do apply silvadine dressings to prevent infection of burns, which with very good effect. Silver has been used for centuries, if not thousands of years, because of its known antibacterial effect. So it's nice that technology has allowed us to create the nanoparticle silver because it's able to leave the body and not to turn us into blue men.
Right.
So I think it's potentially a very nice adjuvant to a healthy lifestyle because of its potential antibacterial and potentially antiviral properties, and iodine as well. And there are a lot of people that are recommending it. I think your formulation is based on a lot of individuals' experiences and good physiologic wisdom as well.
Yeah, my experience, Ron, is this whole list of things, from the oregano to the herbs we're going to talk about in just a second, to the turmeric, to zinc and everything. It starts to add up in cost, and to me, it's like I got to be on it. When I'm speaking at churches, I got to be on my A game. When I'm back home, that's my primary ministry to my family. I don't want to be sick all the time. So when I'm traveling and exposed to things, I was willing to spend the hundreds of dollars on additional ammunition and firepower to augment the healthy lifestyle and the drinking of plenty of water and all of that. But when I started doing this nano silver iodine rosemary combination, and literally I just do 3 sprays to the back of the throat and I leave it there. I love the taste. It's got peppermint too. It's marketed as a breath freshener and immune support because you don't make claims. So, but the peppermint, that's so good. And this past flu season, fall and winter, I did not have to spend a couple of days fighting something off a single time. And that's pretty routine, where it's like, okay, it's a new thing. The body's going to learn that immunity, and you got to spend a couple of days doing the hot cold showers and kind of going all out to fight it off. And I had success doing that, and it would take a couple of days sometimes with those additional supplements, except now. And it's not a cure, it's not a claim, it's nothing. It's just my experience. That's why I put a label on it and put it out there, and I'm selling it as ReVitaGuard, because it was the one thing for me that was the best thing out there.
That's great. And there's so much value in our own personal experiences. A lot of people will say, well, Scott, show me the research. Show me the double-blind placebo-controlled studies that validate your product. But I don't think you have millions of dollars to run those.
Right. And Big Pharma doesn't really have an interest in promoting nano silver either, do they?
No, not really. It's so easily obtained. There are studies on nano silver. The manufacturers will study it to the full extent of their capacity. But unfortunately, our system is geared more towards keeping the status quo, with large pharmaceutical companies continuing to be able to market their products. But that being said, they are paying research scientists to study a lot of these natural remedies, and we can find, maybe not clinical trials, but we can find physiologic evidence that these things could be helpful. The fact that it's been the process that you went through and you've seen this has been very beneficial, and those things are not necessarily harmful. They can be used in moderation. I wouldn't recommend drinking a whole bottle of iodine, but use in moderation, it's very helpful.
Or nano silver, even though this particular part, even though this one doesn't turn you blue, the nano silver in this, I do 3 sprays at a time, and there's 72 servings in the bottle. So this one bottle is lasting me a long time. And I don't do it every day. I do it when I've been out in public, when there's something going around, when it's flu season, or if I feel something at the back of my throat. That's where I usually feel it first. And from what I've learned and heard from the experts is it'll migrate to the lungs from the throat. And if you can catch things in the throat, that's what they out there are saying is the best way. And that's what I've personally found in my experience. But Ron, let's move on from nano silver and iodine and rosemary. And I totally skipped elderberry. Can you talk about elderberry for us?
Definitely. And right here I actually have a bottle of homemade elderberry. I taught my mom how to make this, and she's kept us very well supplied. Thank you, Mom, if you're watching this. It's very easy to make. It's very cost effective if you want to make it yourself. When I used to live in Idaho, we'd find the elderberry growing on the mountain slope, and we would harvest it ourselves, and we would make our own elderberry tincture, glycerin-based tincture. Elderberry is very helpful for a number of reasons. And I'll kind of just quickly go through the evidence. influenza infection, they've actually done clinical studies on elderberry and found that tremendously decreases the intensity and the duration of influenza infection, decreases the need for breakthrough medication for, let's say, asthmatic sufferers, people with chronic bronchitis. And that's really important. Knowing that is very important for potentially for coronavirus. With this current pandemic, I would definitely use it myself, but only selectively, because it can increase cytokines, chemical messengers, that if you're in the late stages of an infection and you're having a potential cytokine overreaction, it would not be a good idea, potentially. There are other remedies that could be better, such as maybe even the turmeric that personally I would use. Elderberry's claim to fame really would be in the early stages. So Scott, you use your spray as soon as you feel something coming on. That would be when I would go to the elderberry. And I probably would use it for maybe a week or two, and that potentially should be sufficient enough of a treatment. I don't think it's something that needs to be taken every day. And if you do take it every day, it's potential that you could even upregulate or increase the amount of sialic acid receptors on the cells. So by long term, make yourself more susceptible to these infections. So that these things need to be used in moderation. Yes.
You just reminded me of my 4 herbs that I came with, because I listened to your YouTube series, Viral Wellness, I believe it was called.
Yes.
And
yes.
It's at Entering Wedge Media, the YouTube channel there. Just put Ron Meinhardt's name in there and watch the 4-part series. And one thing I learned that was very valuable from you, and I had no idea. Like, I knew there was these herbs. I'm picking them all up right now, and I've got my echinacea. I've got my astragalus supreme. I've got my cat's claw bark. I learned about that one from you, and licorice root. And you mentioned don't do the elderberry for more than 2 weeks. Is it also true that with these herbs that they're great, but there's no reason to stack them? There's no reason to do them all at once for 3 months straight. Do you recommend rotating those still, as you said in your seminar, where you do one of them for a week or two, and then hopefully you don't have to do anything more, but if you have to do more, then do a different one for a week or two. And hopefully we're not doing this for months on end, but hypothetically, if you're going to have to keep doing these herbs, you would rotate them, right?
Most definitely. And the reason why, there's a process called homeostasis, and it refers to the normalization of physiologic processes. And when you have an outward stimulus that changes something physiologically, that effect might last for a while, but eventually the body does something to bring it back to normal, to bring levels back to normal. And this is upregulation or downregulation or various physiologic processes that go on. And I recommend things physically active in terms of the potential for immune system modulation, such as echinacea. I've got a little box of echinacea tea right here. And we can look at the research and find they're tremendously stimulatory toward the immune response. For instance, echinacea, a study found recently, showed that it decreases the amount of regulatory T cells, or the activity of regulatory T cells, which are the cells that tell the body or tell the immune system everything's okay. It's a peace and safety message, basically. And there should be times of peace with the immune system. And we shouldn't be at this constant activity level that's going to wear the body down. And a lot of these metabolic disorders, that's potentially what's happening, even obesity. So what echinacea does is it does help to boost the immune response in that aspect, but it also increases the amount of helper T cells, or the activity of helper T cells, which the helper T cells are the ones that go around and they find things that don't belong in the body and help to identify it and present it to other immune cells that can mount eventually an antibody response so that you become immune to it forevermore. And that would be a wonderful thing for all of us with this coronavirus. That being said, this kind of modulation shouldn't be done continually, because you're going to have eventually some kind of suppression or even adverse effects, such as autoimmune disease result. If there if you're at this constant high red alert in terms of the immune system activity.
All right,
So
Ron. Tell.
your question was, should we I think it's great to rotate them, honestly. That being said, I would not take these immunostimulatory herbs if you had a severe immune response already, because you've already got a major immune boosting going on. You need to help the body to modulate that so it's done effectively. The most deadly complication to this coronavirus is when the immune system just goes haywire and basically blows everything up with all the inflammatory compounds there in the lungs.
Ron, in layman's terms, what do you mean by if you have a severe immune response already?
Well, if you have a severe immune response, you're probably going to be on the ventilator in the hospital. So
Okay.
chances are you're not going to really be in any shape to be using these herbs. But keep in mind, let's say our hospitals become overrun. I hope that doesn't happen. But if they did, then you might have to treat yourself at home. In Italy, we found there are people who were sent home to die, basically, because they didn't have enough ventilators to help them. That being said, though, there's some good news in the research, and I'm not trying to give a peace and safety message. I think we should be hyper vigilant during these times. But according to recent evidence from China and Italy, this was published in the British Medical Journal on April 2nd, they found that 4/5 of individuals that contracted the coronavirus were asymptomatic. That means they didn't even have a fever. They didn't even know they were sick. And that's contrary to all the claims that were being pushed on us even up until a month ago, I believe, where they said if you have a fever and maybe you were in close contact with someone who came from China, then we'll test you for this. Honestly, I think that coronavirus has been prevalent in the United States for a lot longer than we've realized. It's just now that we're doing this testing, it seems like everything is blowing up on us in terms of the amount of people that are sick, the death rates and all of that. I think, honestly, we're having lower death rates than we realize. And I think when the smoke clears, we're going to realize that we were probably overestimating the death toll, the death rate of this infection. That being said, though, it's still deadly. It's still a danger. It's still something that we need to be vigilant about. We need to be careful and cautious.
Ron, the last thing on my list is vitamin D, because you mentioned people being indoors and they're in
Yes.
lockdown.
Yes.
We got to be getting outdoors for sunlight. That's one of the letters in the acronym New Start: nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight. Also, maybe supplementing if you live in places where you're not getting enough sunlight. Is vitamin D a important aspect in developing a strong immune response to viral infections? And then throw in anything else that you've got too. That's the end of my list.
Okay, great. Vitamin D is a super important substance. That's why it's termed a vitamin. We can't live without it. The wonderful thing about vitamin D, though, is that it's the one supplement that you don't necessarily have to buy if you can go outside and get some sunlight. A lot of people right now, they're in this self-imposed isolation. They're not even leaving the indoor environment, and that's dangerous, because indoor air is one of the worst things we can breathe in unless we're ventilating our homes, letting the fresh air come in every now and then, because it has, according to the EPA, 3 to 5 times more pollutants, which can interfere with the immune system in the lungs, the alveolar macrophages. They're also known as dust cells. They can be overwhelmed with all the particulate matter they have to clear out. And studies have found that, for instance, going back to the 1918 influenza pandemic, that mice that had these cells knocked out or destroyed, they did not survive the 1918 avian influenza infection. So it's important for us to be out in nature. And a lot of these lockdowns are not including going for walks in nature. At least right now I'm up here in Maine. The governor, I believe, of Maine says, yeah, sure, go for a walk outside, because they realize there are benefits in outdoor environments. Sunlight is one of those things. Vitamin D not only helps to modulate our immune response, it helps to increase our antioxidant capacity in a natural way. It helps to strengthen bones and other tissues, strengthen muscles. It's just a wonderful compound, and it's an essential compound for our health in general.
All right, any last things you want to leave with the viewer?
Yes, I want to talk about charcoal because a lot of people know about charcoal. They take it for, let's say, acute poisonings or maybe gastrointestinal issues. Charcoal is a wonderful remedy just for plain detoxification and for just staying healthy. I think it's something you could take every now and then as just a nice adjuvant to a healthy lifestyle. Studies have found that charcoal actually helps to reduce cholesterol. We talked about that in the beginning of this series, and that is that that cholesterol is potentially harmful. If we have large amounts of cholesterol, it enables coronavirus to replicate easier. And also, one thing I didn't mention is the coronavirus loves to not destroy the cell, but such as the case of influenza, but it will take the cell, it will move up to another cell, and it will merge into that cell. So now you have multiple nucleuses in this one body, and it just becomes a powerhouse of viral activity. But without the cholesterol, the cells can't merge together. So not only can it inhibit the lack of cholesterol, inhibit the viruses from budding off of that cell, but also can inhibit the merger or the fusion of neighboring cells as well. So it's just a wonderful thing. This study that I'm referencing showed 3 tablespoons a day. It was taken in divided doses, I'm assuming with each meal. Resulted in over a 40% reduction in 4 weeks' time of LDL cholesterol. 40% reduction. That's faster than most statin medications can do it. It's just amazing. And side effects, according to the study, were negligible. So that being said, you don't want to take charcoal with your prescription medications if you're on those, because it will bind to those and you will not get the effect, the physiologic effect of your medication. Other studies have found that if you're taking this, at least in animals, they're supplementing this with their food, didn't cause any long-term nutrient deficiency. So it's a beneficial thing to a healthy lifestyle. I wouldn't recommend every day taking it, but periodically it could be very helpful as well.
All right. Did you bring anything else that I didn't bring?
You know, I did, but I don't want to belabor the point. There are so many natural remedies.
Just bullet point them. We want to hear it all.
All right. Pineapple. The bromelain, the pineapple enzyme that's found here, especially in the core of the pineapple, is very beneficial for the lungs and for the upper respiratory tract. Studies have found it helps with rhinosinusitis. I think it was even a control study that showed that. Also helps with natural mucolytic, or helping to thin the mucus if you're trying to get rid of that in recovery from influenza infection in particular. So it could be helpful for that. Also helps with aches and pains, it seems, according to the research. Also have something here that I'd like to mention, and that is a probiotic. You want to make sure your gut health is up to date, because this virus can also grow in the gut. It can be transmitted also fecal to oral, which is another threat that we need to keep in mind. We need to make sure we're washing our hands, and especially before we eat or touch our mouths. My recommendation, if you want to learn more about certain probiotics, I have a whole series called The Gut-Brain Connection and Beyond, where I go in depth into how to spot a good probiotic. It's very important that you understand not all probiotics were created equal. There are some that God created for us to have within our microbiome, and there are some that I believe even are touted as being probiotics that are actually not helpful. So Scott, you mentioned my YouTube channel. I recommend everyone go there, check it out. The whole series is free right now, so you can watch and enjoy that as well. Besides that, I think that's about it. I did have another little onion here. Onions are also one of the allium family members, just like the garlic. So if you can't tolerate the garlic, onion could be helpful as well. And that being said, I just want to leave you with another simple remedy: water. Don't underestimate the value of just drinking plenty of water. Dehydration is one of the leading causes of death, and definitely would lead to a more severe coronavirus infection as well.
Ron, thank you so much. I love the onion idea. We cut
Yeah.
onion and put it on a plate and just leave it out in the bedroom at night, and it's
Hmm.
soaks up toxins in the air. So onion's so good on so many levels. Drinking water, doing the hot cold treatments. We'll have to do another interview another time, but there's other good information out there about the hot cold treatments,
Hmm.
water internally and externally. And I've learned some new things there too about the pineapple and the charcoal and its effect on cholesterol. So, Ron, what's the best way for people to contact you, to find you? What's your website URL? How can people buy
Yes.
your seminars on DVD and get in touch
Hmm.
with you?
Probably the best way is to go to healthislife.org. That's been kind of my standby website for the past 10 years. And you can sign up for our mailing list there. You'll find our DVDs, our natural care products. We also make natural remedies as well, Scott. So you all can check that out on our website. You can
Ron, you're
sign
so
up for
humble. I did not even know that. I knew about your cream for muscle relaxant or for inflammation in the body. I've used that.
yes.
But pick one thing. What's your favorite thing that people ought to get from the natural remedies that you offer?
From Natural Remedy, the only thing we have on our website right now, we don't have any. We at our seminars we were selling the pine oil. Um, Maybe private message me and I can get you some of that, Scott. But I don't have a lot of that. But we do have our cream that I made based on my own experience as well. That's why I appreciated your story about how you developed something that was helpful to you. I developed this after struggling with the autoimmune condition that caused um, almost like sciatica type symptoms, lower back issues, and a lot of digestive tract issues as well. I don't take that internally, of course, apply it topically. But I worked at UC Pines for 4.5 years, and even Dr. Agatha Thrash, we could not figure out what was going on physiologically. I was having so many severe symptoms, yet my lab work came back okay, and eventually decided it was some autoimmune condition. And so I just researched and researched a lot of the knowledge of the natural remedies here. I didn't learn in nursing school. I didn't learn working in the hospital. I learned a little bit working at Wildwood Hospital, just for a few months. But most of this has been just experience and digging into the research. And that's how I formulated this cream. It's called Regenex Transdermal. And that's on our website as well. That's probably enough to say about that. A lot of people have been benefited by it. But
I'm one of them,
my
Ron.
oh,
I've
mhm.
used it and appreciate it a lot. I still have some of the one left that I'll use
Great,
occasionally on my lower back.
good, excellent. That's good to hear.
Well, folks, this has been enlightening to say the least to have Ron Meinhardt with us for this extended interview. And remember, the most important thing of all is not even water and sunlight and exercise and eating a good diet. The most important of all is that we fix our eyes upon Jesus. Because when we see the signs of the times and we know we're trying to get our health in order, yes, but our spiritual health too. Are we in the Word? Are we doing those things that we know are good for body and soul for eternal life? And Ron, I'm sure, would agree wholeheartedly with that, as he and I both have a passion for the present truth and finishing the work. And here we are with the right hand of the gospel. Here we are with the health message that can really be a blessing during these times. So, folks, share these natural remedies, share this video, and share the URL for Health is Life and for entering Wedge Media as well. You can find me in all my videos, of course, at beltoftruth.tv. And that's it for now. Take care.